Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central as we take you through the next 2 hours of some of the major conversations happening here in Nigeria. And as always, we encourage you to be a part of the conversation by simply joining us on News Central TV on all social media platforms. Welcome once again. I am Osaogie Ogbawa.
My name is Joe Hansen. Once again, we're saying thank you for keeping to time. And like we rightly said, we must sincerely apologize of starting actually a bit behind schedule, but we're here. Now, that's what the main detail simply is about. We're here to bring to you the latest stories and some of the biggest stories that we've been tracking, most importantly, and following very closely, has got to do with the fact that the news says Dangote has resumed receiving crude from the international community. Again, this begs questions like what happened to the agreement to get crude from Nigeria? Is there still a little problem brewing between the Dangote refinery and that of the NNPCL? This is one major conversation that Nigerians are indeed having at this point in time. And it also is worrisome because currently we did expect that since the international market prices that had to do with oil saw a little reduction in terms of global prices, we're expecting that there would have been an announcement from the NNPCL that the fuel price that we do have currently would come down as well. But you know what? That's not the case. So who's not talking and who's talking? These are conversations we want to have, just a little bit of it and many more. We'll also have conversations around the Major General and the abuse of power. This is one conversation Nigerians have taken by themselves, have taken it up, and they are discussing it, especially on X. It's a very, very delicate one, Osaogie, is one that hits you right where you don't want it to. I did see a comment on that issue. Someone said, flexing muscles on Nigerians when you are needed to flex the same muscle in Sambisa. And I was like, okay, all right. Maybe that's a food for thought.
Yeah, but I think I don't necessarily agree with those statements, because it maybe also disregards the number of lives of Nigerian soldiers that have been lost. Just yesterday we spoke about an attack that occurred in I think it was in Borno State.
Absolutely.
By this entire group. So it disregards the lives of Nigerian soldiers that have been lost in Sambisa and in the fight against insurgency in the last couple of years. And I don't think we should disrespect or disregard those lives and the effort that has been put in by the Nigerian army. I believe that they are doing what they can in the fight against insurgency. Our call is that a lot more must be done, and if questions must be asked about the sincerity of this fight and the resources that have been invested into this fight, and if we're actually doing things the right way, if there is any internal sabotage that is going on, then the government must investigate and ensure that those things are stopped. So I don't agree with that narrative, accusing them of abandoning the fight against insurgency. I think that they're doing the best that they can with the resources that they have. But at the same time, like I described it yesterday, I believe that when we see these things happen, when we see soldiers or the police assault and abuse, say Nigerians, it's mostly just a picture of what the Nigerian state or how the Nigerian state treats the Nigerian citizen. What we saw in that video is is just a perfect example of how the Nigerian state views the Nigerian citizen as someone that can be abused, as someone who doesn't necessarily have rights, as someone whose rights can be trampled upon at will. And it will happen in every aspect of society, not just with the army. They have said that they will investigate, and we hope that there's a proper investigation that is carried out, and whoever needs to be punished must be adequately punished. With regards the controversy concerning Dangote refinery and the supply of petrol and of course the importation of crude, I once again say that what we mostly do is try to analyze these things by ourselves and call in energy experts to analyze what's going on with Dangote and the price of petrol and whatnot. But What we still do not have and what we still do not see is that the Nigerian government, whose responsibility it is, to provide a working petroleum sector, that same Nigerian government doesn't seem to take as much interest in investigating and analyzing these issues and being honest with the Nigerian people as to what exactly is going on with the Dangote refinery. The National Assembly itself has not been able to invite every necessary party to have a clear understanding and to be honest with Nigerians as to what exactly is going on, within a time frame, and ensure that we stop having this crisis in the petroleum sector and we stop having the confusion that we currently have within the petroleum sector. So we can analyze as much as we can. Next week, there's probably going to be a news story on the Dangote refinery and the importation of crude oil. And
hopefully, hopefully we hear something good.
What we will demand is that the Nigerian government itself knows its responsibility and is accountable to Nigerian people in that regard. Well,
our fingers are crossed. But then again, if you do have your governor, especially a governor in your state, let's quickly bring you glad tidings and good news. And the good news simply is that FAC, that's the federal government allocation, has shared again 1.14 trillion naira. So it's been shared for the month of October. Okay? Having been shared, it means that your governor has received the money that would definitely be allocated to the state. So you might want to also look into your state, especially for those who are from different parts of Nigeria, talking about the 36 states, and see the possibility of ensuring that these jobs that have been abandoned can actually be completed. Don't forget, for some governors, they barely have just 3 years or 2 years to go before their tenure winds down. But that's all we're talking about this morning in terms of starting off the show. We do have so much to talk about, so let's bring to you our top stories this morning. This morning on Breakfast Central, Senate sacks CCT Chair Danladi Umar over alleged misconduct. Many have said it's been a long time coming. Army officers assault couple for overtaking convoy. One of the tidbits we just talked about this morning. FCT Minister inspects infrastructure project and he promises to dole out a certain amount of cash. We do have joining us later on in the course of the show, the Nigeria Prize for Literature 2024. Two guests hopefully will be here to join us this morning. And newspaper front pages will talk about what the papers are saying as well. Do us a favor, stay with us. Up next, it's Breakfast Headlines.
We begin breakfast headlines in West Africa, Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu has dissolved the governing council of the Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka, Anambra State, and removed its newly appointed Vice Chancellor, Professor Bernard Odu, and Registrar, Mrs. Rosemary Wukike. He also approved the removal of Oheku Salami as the Pro-Chancellor and Chairman of the Governing Council of the Federal University of Health Sciences, Otukpo, Benue State. And still talking about removals, we now head to the Parliament, where the Senate has removed the Chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal, Danladi Umar, over alleged gross misconduct. This decision was made pursuant to Section 151, subsection 1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, which empowers the Senate to remove key public officials following due process. The sacking followed a closed-door session lasting over 1 hour, or 1.5 hours, I beg your pardon. The news central, or the news headlines, now continues in West Africa, where the International Criminal Court has sentenced a jihadist police chief to 10 years in jail for war crimes and crimes against humanity committed during a reign of terror in the fabled Malian city of Timbuktu. ICC judges had convicted 47-year-old Al-Hassan Al-Abdul Aziz Mohammed in June for crimes including torture, where he was a member of the feared Ansar-Din Islamic militant group that seized control of Timbuktu for almost a year from early 2012. And an influential support group of the Malian junta has called for the resignation of civilian Prime Minister Shogel Kokala Mega after his criticism of the ruling generals. A section of the Malian military known as the Collective of Military Defense, CDM, is accusing the Prime Minister of treason and denunciation following his criticism of the ruling generals. We now head to the east of the continent, where the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights has warned of a return of the dark days of the country's history. At a press conference in Nairobi, the Commission's Vice Chair, Raymond Ngiris, told reporters that rising cases of abductions and enforced disappearances are an affront to human rights tenets that the country ascribes to. He added that urgent action is required to protect the gains that the country's forefathers and mothers fought for. Still in the news, veteran Ugandan opposition figure Kizza Besigye appeared in military court in Kampala on Wednesday, accused of seeking to compromise national security after his reported abduction in neighboring Kenya at the weekend. The manner of Besigye's detention has caused an uproar, with concerns over Kenya's role and the heightened government crackdown on Uganda's opposition. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Let's now head back to Breakfast Central and get back into our top stories. I am Osalgie Ogbonwa.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has inspected projects at the Buari and Kwali area councils of the Federal Capital. The Minister, while assuring that the projects will be completed on schedule ahead of their December commissioning date, says that no area of the capital will be left untouched. In Abuja for News Central, our correspondent Amadine Uyi ensured that he did follow through with this story. And one of the key things that many have equally said in Abuja is the very fast approach that the minister has used in ensuring that the road projects are indeed completed. Well, this happens to be one of the major key points, especially for all who reside in Abuja. And talking about the progress being made in terms of infrastructure, Nigerians are equally talking about infrastructure in other parts of the country, not just in the Federal Capital Territory. But then again, let's take a look at this package, and then we'll be right back to talk some more.
It was the inspection of the 6-lane dual carriage expressway from the airport road to the Kuje area council in Nigeria's federal capital, Abuja. The minister of the FCT also inspected the structures comprising about 13 buildings, including some factories along the road corridor earmarked for demolition. He says that about 1.1 billion naira has been approved for the compensation of the owners of the affected properties affected by the road construction.
The entire estimate they gave is about 1.something billion, well, 1.1 billion. And to pay for those whose property are affected, like some of these buildings you have seen here, down to the community. So it's about 1.1 billion, and we are going to make it available so that the contractor will not find any excuse for delay.
The minister, who earlier inspected the ongoing construction of the Abuja division of the Court of Appeal and its feeder road, expressed satisfaction with the progress of the projects.
It's progressing as expected. By the grace of God, we believe that September next year, the contractor would have handed over the structure, which is Abuja division of the Court of Appeal. I'm very much impressed with what I've seen. I can also see the construction of the road leading to that edifice. And the contractor is also doing everything possible to see that he beats up to the time.
He also reviewed that approval has been given for the implementation of a minimum wage increase for workers in the Federal Capital Territory. He urged them to be motivated by the increment and boost their productivity for the capital. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Well, there you have it, a compensation of 1.1 billion naira, especially with now that everyone is talking about construction, and there you have the Federal Capital Territory Minister there. But we want to say we know that constructions are very vital, especially in helping build infrastructure, which would definitely also help the economy. We do hope that these infrastructures will indeed be done, not just in the Federal Capital Territory, but also in different parts of Nigeria. But you know what? Let's just move straight to our very next story. And it's got to do with that story we talked about at the start of the program, Asage.
Yes, absolutely. A viral video showing a senior army officer and two soldiers assaulting a man in the Federal Capital Territory has sparked widespread outrage online. The incident reportedly occurred after the man allegedly overtook their vehicle. In the 1 minute 57-second clip, the victim is shown writhing in pain while repeatedly pleading his case. A female passenger who tried to record the incident was also targeted, with a soldier forcefully attempting to seize her cell phone.
Well, reacting to the incident, the acting chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, has ordered an investigation to determine the circumstances surrounding the altercation. In a statement that you can see there on the screen, it reads that the attention of the Nigerian Army has been drawn to a viral audio-visual recording circulating on social media platforms, purportedly showing a senior Army officer and two other soldiers in an altercation with a man and a woman within the Abuja metropolis. And then it goes ahead to break it down somewhat near the end of the paragraph, where it says the NA, Nigerian Army, remains committed to serving and protecting all law-abiding Nigerians and enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But then again, let's take a look. Let's take a look at that clip very briefly. But we must warn you, this clip you're about to see could be somewhat disturbing.
Oh God!
Jesus, Jesus! Oh no, Jesus!
Come out! My brother is
He's not feeling fine! He's not feeling fine!
Then what's
He's
not feeling? That's why he's dragging. My sister, come down.
Jesus!
Talk.
Jesus! How can you see what they did to my eye? Are you seeing? Jesus!
Bring this one. Why are you coming? Give me the phone. Give me this phone.
Well, that's a clip that it's not too good to see, especially on a morning like this. But then again, let's talk through the current situation of things in Nigeria, especially looking at that clip. Joining us to discuss this, we do have a security expert and retired director of the Department of State Services, DSS, Dennis Makri. Joins us this morning. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning to discuss this very disturbing clip that we just saw.
Good morning. Thank you, and thank you very much for having me.
All right. Obviously, the very first question that would pop up anybody's mind or heart would be, what should be done by the Nigerian Army? Seeing that clip and seeing the faces of the Major General and others who joined in attacking that man and the woman in the car. That's the very first question everyone would ask. What should be done?
Well, I think the military knows what to do. Of course, they've gone ahead to set up an inquiry into it. I hope that by now it should have been suspended because I think this is a very, very unbecoming where a major general. I was surprised because when I saw the clip myself, I was looking out for the rank of who did this. The corporal, yes, I know other ranks, but for a general, he came down from his car and was doing that. I think it was a disgrace to our military.
Yeah, I mean, but what are some of the things, or some of the questions that should be asked? I mean, while investigating this, was his life in danger? Was this maybe, because they overtook his vehicle? I mean, is that a crime to overtake the vehicle of a military officer in Nigeria? What are the key things that should be asked, to determine, why he, acted that way?
Well, I think the investigation will bring it out, but looking at it on the surface, you will find out that his life was not in danger, because if his life was in danger, I think the first thing is to evacuate the area. So for him to stay there and go out to, start badgering into the car of the civilian, I think his life was not in danger. But instead, it has raised consequences serious consequences, because this is what we've been talking about, the military intervention in internal security. You don't find soldiers in other countries, even here in the United States, very, very hardly, except maybe in the airport. And if you see them in the airport, most likely they are going on pass, going on leave or something. And when they want to enter the plane, the plane will first board them. And people really clap for them. If they're in a group, they clap for them as they enter the plane and thanking them for the service they are having for the country. Military people are well respected. But in Nigeria, I think we see them every day. They're all over the road. And then, of course, moving around with sirens, I don't know. I don't know the mentality, because I feel that many people believe that moving around with siren is what makes you a big man, and then when you're moving with siren, people should move away from the road. You find out that the use of siren itself is not one that you want to encourage, because actually what you're doing is drawing attention to yourself. And instead of moving towards the society, you are now beating up civilians, and that shows, the consequences are bad, social consequences, where, they lose respect, the military will lose respect, and then, of course, you find out that a lot of people don't respect them again, and because the military is a respected institution, because they are the ones that are supposed to put their lives for civilians, and then, of course, we are in a democracy. That means they are supposed to subjugate themselves to the authority of the civilian government. But when you see them speeding through as if they are also politicians, I think it's a very bad idea.
Okay, Mr. Dennis, I'd like us to quickly paint a picture here, especially for our viewers. I do wish I had a board somewhere so I could actually put this into a clear explanation. But then again, we do have a convoy, a convoy of the military cars flying or moving around the road and so on. And possibly it could be this man broke that convoy. What are the best steps to take, aside from what we saw right there on the video? What would you advise? What's the first thing such an officer should do? Because I understand that being a former DSS person, you may understand how these trainings could also impact on the action every single person in the force could take at every different situation. So what's the first thing that could have been done so that we can start getting it right?
Yes, I think, thank you for that question, because I think it's good for public enlightenment. I used to be a presidential bodyguard in Durham Barracks, where I was in charge of a team. And of course, during the training, it was one that, why are convoys? Let's ask that question first of all. Why do we have convoys? Convoys are designed in such a way to protect a very important person, a very important person. It could be president, it could be a governor, it could be a foreign visiting president, of which I've done a lot of that. And we go in a convoy. And the whole idea, the convoy is also on speed, because it's to also deter assassination, because when a VIP is on the road, is the most vulnerable time for him. That's when he's most vulnerable. So they tend to move on speed. And then, of course, you have to be a real sharpshooter, before you can get a president who is in a convoy. Just like they got John F. Kennedy in the United States. He was in a convoy, and then of course the shooter was up somewhere in the building and then took him out. So these are things that happen when a convoy is going on, But again, coming back to this particular situation, there was no convoy. There was no convoy at all, because we don't see more than one car. We don't see more than one. And even if there is going to be a convoy, that Major General is not, important enough to have a convoy. I don't know his position in the army, or in the government for him to carry a convoy. Because the convoys that are recognized right now are convoys by governors, the president himself, I can even see some ministers are carrying convoys around. That is illegal. It's illegal. And those are not necessary. It depends on the importance of that VIP that could make a situation where the guy will be given protective details. And if they give a protective detail to a VIP, like the Major General himself or even a minister, then their modus operandi is going to be a different one. They could be discreet about it. They could be very, very discreet about it, because the whole idea of protecting a VIP on the streets where he is most vulnerable is to make sure that nothing happens to him. And that's why you find out that some of them even use bulletproof cars, to avert any kind of accident, somebody trying to shoot or something. So this particular situation does not require a convoy, and there was none, and the person involved is not a VIP, and I think the military should start talking to their people to subjugate themselves to civil authority, because we cannot continue having a backlash of the 13 years of military rule in Nigeria. Many people are having that mentality. Even governors, having the mentality of with immediate effect or dealing with people and stuff like that. We should remember that this is a democracy.
Yeah, I don't know if you would agree with me, but I think, what we're seeing here, again, is the complete militarization of the Nigerian society and the Nigerian mentality as well. Because, this is maybe one of the only places where we're talking about breaking a convoy, as such an offense. Is that illegal? There's no part of the Nigerian Constitution.
I'd like to complete that question that the partner asked, whether it is illegal.
Yeah.
And when we were in service, it's illegal because it makes the person suspicious. One thing that people should also learn not to do, if there's a convoy, you see other cars trying to race, or they will cut out and join the convoy and started to pursue, the convoy. Basically, it's for, to beat the traffic, But all the same, you don't cut into a convoy. Because when you cut into a convoy, the training of the bodyguards at that time is that you are coming to kill the VIP. You see, you are coming to kill the VIP. So by training, what they do is to use the cars. They will use the cars to remove that person, that car. I remember when we were in training, there was a car that cut into our convoy, and then of course we used the car, we drove in such a way that he couldn't remain in the convoy. He has to get out of the convoy.
Yeah, I get that already. I think that one's pretty understandable, why, what you've just explained. What I'm asking, or what I'm trying to clarify here, and again, that's why I started with the militarization of the Nigerian society and the Nigerian mentality. If you remember when the Zaria massacre happened, one of the popular excuses then was that they blocked the road of an army chief and they touched his chest, or some silly excuse like that. But it's, again, the militarization of the Nigerian mentality that you make people feel like, it's okay to be assaulted, brutally assaulted for daring to break the convoy. I've even seen people explain on social media that it's also maybe illegal to overtake a military vehicle, and once you see them on the road, you should completely get out of the way. And we've been abused for so long, and these things then become normal.
I agree with you. I think there's a level of militarization of the Nigerian society whereby people are still having a backlash of the military mentality, the military era, so to say. People that have gone through war and come out from war, usually have such mentalities, such residual mentality in them. But again, you see, it was a big problem. I remember 1999, when the country was moving from military government to, a civil democracy. A lot of people, I remember even in the DSS, where we have to go through a lot of training. You have to retrain people to, learn how to deal with civil society. I remember that one perfectly. And then, of course, because it's not the same. During military regimes, there's a very high level of impunity, a very high level. And then, of course, they feel they're in the government. And then, of course, you hear things like bloody civilian, I'll deal with you. I will do this with immediate alacrity. All kinds of militarized languages where, indirectly suggesting brutality, and we are in a democracy now. I think even the Minister of Defense should come into this, because we have to relegate the military back into the barracks. And I don't, that's one problem I have about, the military getting so much involved in internal security. Internal security should be left to the civil, or paramilitary security agencies like police, the DSS, and to some extent NSCDC, because Nigeria is another country where you see a lot of uniforms, all kinds of uniforms, because people have come to, because these are all part of the military this thing, whereby they believe that when you wear a uniform, it gives you some kind of temporal authority, with which you can now do whatever you like. And basically what you like to do at that time is oppressing civilians, and that is not good at all, especially in a democratic society, So the military should be gradually removed. And then, of course, why do we invite them in? Because we felt that there was a serious problem that the police cannot handle, But right now, we are seeing that you can, recruit more policemen, train more policemen, train them. In fact, the SWAT teams that we have here in the United States are policemen, but they are trained to be the best of the best in such a way that when they want to go and take care of certain situations like kidnapping or even I keep on mentioning this. If there is a hijack of a plane and it lands at Murtala Mohammed Airport, which team do we have that will respond to that particular breach? And these are the things that we are talking about. Train them to the highest level. I know the police was weakened a lot during the military regime because they felt that the police was too strong. that the police could stop the military from carrying out their coups. So a lot of, I remember, I don't want to mention their names, but some military leaders try to make sure that they decimate the powers of the police and even the military to an extent, because they don't want them to plan a coup. So most of our equipment were very, very old. And it's recently that they're even buying modern equipment for the military. So let us restructure, and then of course, move the military out of the civilian space. They should be responsible to defend the country from external aggression. That's what the military is supposed to be, and the consequences of putting them or mixing them in internal security is where they now try to bastardize civilians, whom they are supposed to protect. The mantra of the police is to protect and serve, to serve and protect, service and protection. The military is to kill, and that's for external and foreign enemies of Nigeria. But when you bring them into internal security, then the only way they know how to do is to kill, brutalize. And when they do this, you find out that it is not good for our civilian society.
We can only imagine. That's the more reason why, we need some form of reorientation, possibly for the military as well, and a lot of courses. Maybe look deep into the courses that were used for the military before and maybe have an upgrade. But we want to say thank you so much. There's no better person who could have broken this down for us other than you. And since it's Father's Day, even though it's past, but we still need to talk about it this week.
Men's Day.
Men's Day. International Men's Day, Father's Day, name it. I mean, like I say, the men fall under father, brother, sister, and so on and so forth. I want to say thank you so much for joining us. And as men on the show today, yes, we own it. I would say thank you for always responding to a call. And I don't know if anyone has said it to you. We personally love you, and we thank you for that.
Thank you for having me always.
Thank you.
Thank you, Macri.
All right. Okay, let's move away from that story to another one. The Nigerian Senate has called on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to sack Danladi Umar, chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal, CCT, over allegations of corruption and misconduct. The resolution, sponsored by Senate leader Okweyemi Bamidele, was adopted during Wednesday's plenary after 84 senators voted in favor. Bamidele cited numerous petitions against Umar and noted that the CCT chairman had refused to appear before the Senate for questioning.
Now, invoking Section 157, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution, the Senate recommended Umar's removal, emphasizing the need for accountability. The final decision now rests with President Tinubu, who is expected to act on the Senate's resolution. Now, joining us is lawyer, political analyst, and the convener of Vanguard for the Independence of the Judiciary, Douglas Obankwa. Good morning, and thanks for your time.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. I mean, the Danladi Umar case has been on long enough, and of course, it's probably not the first time, that he's gotten into controversial issues. But what is your view on the case generally and the decision to, have him removed?
Danladi Umar's trajectory in the Code of Conduct Tribunal is actually an example of how not to be a public officer. This lawyer has moved from one level of impunity to another. I was publicity secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association Benin branch when he gave a very firm ex parte order removing the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Honorable Justice Walter Onoge. That was the height of it. It has never happened in Nigerian history. That a judicial officer that is an equivalent of a magistrate will give an order removing the Chief Justice of Nigeria. And that was one of the lows. In fact, the lowest ebb that the Nigerian judiciary has ever descended into. And I'm so surprised that the young man even stay this long, particularly because we found that he was even a street fighter. I was in Benin when I received a call from Abuja that there's somebody that beat up someone at Donet's
Plaza
and more. And so we had to make some contact with our colleague, and our colleague proceeded to the Warimpa police station. Yes, where it does appear as if the young man was being oppressed by this same Danladi woman. We had to now escalate the matter before the truth could be found. And some people went as far as writing a petition against Danladi woman to the Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee. It was that period that also a petition was done to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I remember vividly that my colleague, Samuel Heseke, on the brief of Chief Patrick Eholo, who's an activist, we call him the ultimate equal, did that petition to the Senate. I also remember that Danladi woman appeared before the Senate just once, after which he went to court. You know, the court is now being used as a shield, let's say as a sword instead of a shield. You now have a scenario where people who ordinarily will account for their actions, they will rush to court. And under the vague nomenclature of the matter being sub judice, people are no longer able to account for their actions. And so the Senate in their plenary yesterday indicated that the investigation of Danladi woman has been on since the 9th Senate. As you know, this is the 10th Senate. He has been alleged of a lot of things like misappropriation of funds, absenteeism from work for over a month, things that range from, you know, things that will be coming of the public officer. Of course, you know, we have the public service rules, which guides the conduct of public officers. A public officer is expected to act in a way and manner that would instill confidence and public confidence in that office. The ex parte order that Danladi woman gave removing Honorable Justice Walter Onoge as Chief Justice of Nigeria, in the face of that order, which I still have, no lawyer moved to that application. And sometimes when these people do the shenanigans, they act as if we did go to the Nigerian law school, or as if we did not eat the 3 dinners together. They act as if they have a supersonic knowledge of the law. How can you move an ex parte order and no lawyer moved it? Are you not saying that you, Danladi woman, you are the one that moved it and you granted it to yourself? And when we rose up to say, no, we will not allow this to happen, some persons thought that we had an interest to protect. Of course, we had an interest to protect. And the interest we have to protect is the rule of law. It is said that when you protect the rule of law while you are in office, the rule of law will protect you while you are out of office. Now, you are going to be surprised that this same Danladi woman will rush to the same court that he has desecrated, the same court that he has undermined, the same court that he has lampooned, because the actions of Danladi woman is one that should be laminated and put in the hall of shame. That is not how to be a lawyer.
But then again, I beg to ask, a lot of persons would say that he couldn't have done this on his own. There could have been forces who actually gave him the oomph, the support, the necessary powers that he needed, because one man cannot be too powerful for over 200 million plus Nigerians. And then, of course, the judiciary. And the desecration of the judiciary, like you said, or the law, is something that we ordinarily would think every single person in every lawyer would want to protect. So don't you think that there were powers that be, as it were, that gave him that support? And don't you think it is also crucial to look within and also pinpoint who these persons were so that they too can equally come back and face the law as well?
Well, there's a proverb in Benin where I practice law, live and practice law, that when a king sends you on an errand, you have to be very, very, circumspect about it so that you don't end up being the fall guy. You apply instructions with discretion. You have actually encapsulated the truth in this matter, my dear brother. However, That is not within our knowledge. It's for him to say so. If he chose, when you are appointed into a public office, there's an oath every public officer takes. And the most important element in that oath is that I will perform my duty to all without any affection or ill will. So if indeed, like you have stated, that he has performed his duty with ill will and with affection, then it means that he himself is copying. I know exactly what you're saying. I know, because by the grace of God, we know what is happening in our profession. That the woman was giving cover. That's the truth. It was given cover by the system. That is why you see, you could go ahead and remove the Chief Justice of Nigeria and nothing happened to him. I'm telling you the truth. And that is I think it's one of the rules of our profession. Yeah. Sometimes in this our profession, we should tell ourselves the truth.
Yeah.
You're trying to sugarcoat things. It was petitioned to the National Judicial Council. Then the woman gave a very laughable defense that he does not report to the National Judicial Council. He reports to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So if you report to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, why are you sitting in a judicial capacity? Why can you grant bail? Are you not saying that the President of Nigeria is part of the judiciary? We just have, sometimes we have to think before we talk. So, but despite all this, the then National Judicial Council, as you know, will have a new National Judicial Council that is not just backing, but is biting. I can tell you that the Honorable Justice Kudirat, Motomori Kokereku, and GCFR, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, there's a new sheriff in town. And for the very first time, you could see judges being suspended, judges being dismissed. That is something we've not seen being done for a long time. There have always been this party level, where you cover all things. But my Lord, the Honorable Chief Justice of Nigeria has said, enough is enough. So I think this is like, I want to say this. You may love President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you may hate him, but there is something I think resonates with his regime. The fact that there is an appreciable level for the rule of law to thrive. There may have been one or two mistakes here and there. I'm not saying the president is perfect, but you could find that for the very first time since 1999, local government councils are having full autonomy. For the very first time since 1999, very soon, the charade that the governors call local government elections will no longer take place while you are counting votes at the polling units. Elections is being announced. That will never happen anymore. We are going to have Independent National Electoral Commission conducting local government elections. This particular action of the Senate led by His Excellency Senator Godwin Obot Akpabio, it's the first time since 1999 that Section 1571 of the Constitution is being implemented. The very first time. This is the very first time the Senate is removing a public officer. So there are a lot of things that we can say that this country can be better. We particularly, we have been crying that there are things that need attention. And I know that the people are groaning, and I'm groaning as a person.
Kind of hold on.
I also believe that.
Permit me to jump in, sir.
It's not prosperity.
In the interest of time,
element of democracy.
Kindly hold on, sir.
The rule
Respect
for fundamental human rights and disdain for impunity.
All right, kindly hold on. We're running out of time. The current National Assembly, as much as, yes, you give them kudos for the implementation of Section 157 and removing a public, official, many Nigerians would still remind them that Senator Ningi accused them of budget padding, and what they did was suspend him. So they're not necessarily a bunch of saints, that, many that, it might be painted as. There's many issues in the National Assembly that Nigerians, would like them to hold themselves to account, with. But that aside, I also want to ask why you think that it has taken this long. I mean, you mentioned, that it was a stain on the judiciary, what happened with the water on Norgay. And that's a conversation that I would absolutely love to continue to have, because I've tried to express the damage that has been done to Nigeria's institution and Nigeria's judiciary itself, mostly by the previous administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. But the fact that, the judiciary itself, to some extent, has also been complicit. They've also been accused of being complicit in the damage to their institution and the strength of the judiciary itself. So there's that part. But I just want to ask why you think it took this long for Danladi Umar to be removed, for the assault in Banex Plaza alone should have been enough for him to have been removed from that position. It didn't need to take the 10 million naira bribery allegation. It didn't need to take water. There's too many reasons, but the Banex Plaza assault alone should have been enough. So why do you think it took this long?
It's a very good question. I'll answer your question, but I want to resonate with the comment you made about the National Assembly suspending Senator Nimbi, for what they say ethics-related issue. Now, I want to say that, and the National Assembly and all houses of assembly in Nigeria have to listen and listen very good. Nobody has a right to suspend another member, another senator, another House of Reps. The Court of Appeal has stated that a senator, a member of the House or House of Assembly, is not your employee. He's a representative of the people. He was elected. You have no rights to suspend him. Then even the electoral authorities, Dino-Milai's case is of the authority that even if you suspended someone, you can only suspend him for only one legislative day. So all these things of Senate President, Speaker, you just, because you think you have the majority, just say, hey, you are suspended. That is not the law. You have no right to suspend a senator. You have no right to suspend a member of the House of Representatives. You have no right to suspend a member of the House of Assembly because you're not the one that elected them in the first place. They were elected the same way you were elected. As a Senate President, House of Rep member, as House of Rep Speaker, or Speaker of the House, you are just what they call what we call in law a primus inter pares, a first among equal. You are not the alter ego of the House. You do not own the House. The House belongs to everybody. And that House of Senate, made up of 109 members, and House of Representatives, made up of 360 members, is actually a house of the Nigerian people. That is why democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, to answer your question, my dear brother, Nigeria is a country that is run by strong men and not strong institutions. My experience in Nigeria in the last 2 years has been very, very interesting. And I want to tell you that this country has to change. The system is not working. Let's call it speed is speed. I support the president. Let me say this. I am a supporter of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but I will say the truth. The Nigerian system is manifestly waxed. Whether it's the judiciary, the legislature, or the executive, we have to hold a town hall meeting. How can someone like Danladi Umar still be there since 2018? It's completely unacceptable. And there are very many people like that all over. How many people? Because if you even look at the people that have been appointed all over the world, we have peers all over the world that will do peer review. We have people like, we have friends from South Africa, America, and we ask ourselves questions. In most countries of the world, people that are interested in policy issues, the government consult them. In Nigeria here, once you are a person, you see that you are a critic, they will categorize you as an enemy. They will put you in a pedestal. What they want to hear is Your Excellency, Your Excellency. But before you say Your Excellency, you have to do some excellence. Your Excellency is not just Your Excellency from namesake. Your Excellency, you have to be excellent. Because sometimes people that run government do not know the enormity of the action, the enormity of the powers that they carry. You carry the fates of people. You carry the destinies of people in your hand. So the decisions you take when it comes to government must be made with so much circumspection you ask yourself questions. Because anything you do or say has great significance for all Nigerians. If the president of Nigeria comes down and say, I think Nigerians should go back to agriculture. We want to plan a program where we would empower 2 million farmers to do 365 planting of cash crops for exportation. Do you know that statement alone? People have started dusting their bows and their cutlasses and started heading to farms. So the presidency or the governorship of a state is not an ordinary thing. So also our positions. Before we give new positions, we must check them. Because the way that the woman has moved, I don't understand. How can you be fighting on the streets? You're a lawyer. As lawyers, we have what you call conduct on becoming of a lawyer. A lawyer must act in a manner that the society will see him. There's a solemnity, equanimity, and subduedness in our conduct. If you see that, if you saw that video, you'll be very embarrassed.
I can tell you that. I can tell you that we did catch a glimpse of that video, but you know we're out of time. Mr. Ogbankwa, if you would grant us not an autonomy this time, but if you grant us your time, we'd like to have you once more. There's a lot to talk about. We'd like to dissect and assess the justice system in Nigeria, the rights and integrity, and we think you would make a very, very good addition to that conversation, especially now that you're practicing in Edo State, and you do see what's happening in Rivers State as well. We'd like to get your point on that, not now, but when we get to invite you once again. Thank you so much for joining us this very day. Thank you.
It's a pleasure of doing my share in building the nation. Thanks so much.
Great. Have a great day.
And now let's get into the newspapers and share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning. We're going to be kicking off on the Punch newspapers this morning and see what we can find. Should be on your screen in just a few seconds. Big one there on the headline says, Tinubu set to name envoys as ministry post-consular officers. It says also consular officers deployed to embassies in Spain, Malaysia, Brazil, and others. Concerns raised over state of country's missions abroad. Aida Tiwa gets certificate. Court to decide PDP suit against deputy. Court orders police to employ 22,000 constabularies. US-based Nigerian jailed for 6 years for $6 million bribery scam. And also misconduct, NBA backs Senate over sacking of CCT chair. Also on the point this morning, bank chiefs lobby presidency over 1 trillion naira forex gain. Troops hunt terrorists behind Borno's soldiers killing. And also PDP governors NWEC meeting Jos brainstorm on NEC meeting. These are the stories that we can find or we can take this morning on the Punch newspapers. This Nigeria comes up next.
On This Nigeria, let's see what we have. It says, energy crisis, discos, activities, threats to economy, reps declare. That's what they say. Discos, activities, threats to economy, reps declare. Urge federal government to categorize them as non-state actors. I think it's high time we also hear from the discos too. Let's see what they're saying. Substandard sugar flood Nigerian markets. FCCPC cries out. So we might want to be very careful. Massive road development in FCT will ease food transport, says Minister. We did talk about that in the first hour. Jigawa tanker explosion claims 209 lives. Wow. Injured 99, according to reports. You find that story on page 9 if you want to read more on that. Senate approves sack of conduct tribunal chair over alleged misconduct. And that's exactly what we also talked about in the first hour. But that's all the story you have on This Nigeria.
All right, and now to the Daily Times newspapers. FAC, as it's called, federal government, states, local government share 1.14 trillion naira for October 2024. Tinubu dissolves Nnamdi Azikiwe University Council, sacks VC and registrar. And also, Oshomole opposes son's appointment as Edo commissioner. I wonder why. 58-year-old Algerian arms dealer, arrested in Zamfara. And also, Senate sacks Danladi Umar as CCT chair. Chidima Adesina quits page entry. Congratulations to her so far. Those are the only stories that we can find on the Daily Times. And we could also see a picture there of the Ogun State governor who's been re-elected, Loke Latiwa. Ondo State, I beg your pardon.
And PDP says they're going to court. No, let's see how that will pan out.
Yeah, I think we'll have one final paper.
Yeah, sure. Let's take a look at the final paper and let's talk on that. It's got to do with the Guardian right there. Naira plunge stalls federal government states capital project, spikes cost by 75%. And this seems a bit understandable, but let's take a look at the graphic detail there. It says cement prices nearly triple. Iron rods hit record highs. MDA struggle to adjust budgets amid exchange rate crisis. Projects face uncertainty as contractors demand reviews. Yeah. Another story there. Senate sacks CCT chairman Danladi Umar. Disco's actions threatening economy stability, reps declare. PDP backs Damagum as LP mobilizes youths for 2027 showdown. FX differential revenue accounts for 21% of 2.67 trillion naira FAAC, that's FAC revenue. Another one here says NMPC exporting 4.7 million barrels of new crude to Spain and US. $1 trillion economy drive critical to banishing poverty, says Hamzat, that's the deputy governor of Lagos State. Bills on diaspora voting, mineral exploration funding skills, second reading. This could be a good one if you have diaspora voting. It's been a conversation that's been on for a very long time. And it's skill, it's second reading. So Nigerians should brace up. Those in the diaspora, you'd eventually have a say when it comes to the elections here in Nigeria. But that's all we're taking on The Guardian. But I'd like to focus on one of the big stories in form of looking at the Naira plunge, stalls federal government, states capital project, spikes cost by 75%. To be honest, this was actually going to happen. You do recall that when the president had initially submitted the appropriation bill for last year to the National Assembly, it was later reviewed because the dollar exchange rate to the Naira wasn't exactly what was on the initial budget. They had to review it upwards. So recall that some of the projects that were already registered on that budget, a lot of them equally would have to be further reviewed again, especially going into a new year. Look at going into a new year, 2025. So they have to be reviewed once again because the Naira is not in any way gaining its strength. Rather, it is losing its strength, especially when it comes to engaging projects. And some of the, I like the graphic detail here from The Guardian, and it's quite true, it's frank. It says cement prices nearly triple. Cement prices, as at last year, was going for 5,800 or so, and now it's nearing 10,000 bucks. So there's no way a contractor who would have contracted to build roads, infrastructure, and so on for the federal government put 6,700 or so while submitting his invoice. He would not be able to complete that task. He can't because he needs to review the prices, and I think the federal government also knows this. MDA struggle to adjust budgets amid exchange rate crisis. It's also going to be a problem for them because, you know, the funny thing about this Naira back and forth instability, if you get a quotation now, who tells you that by December 15, it will not go up again? So that's a big problem as well. And then it says, I did see one on the rods, iron rods hit record high. For me, just like every other Nigerian, you start to wonder what happens to our steel companies. I mean, if you go to South Africa, you have the biggest there, and it's been there for decades. They've been deliberate to ensure that they have the steel company working. We have our Jalkuta Steel. Till today, it's still a conversation that these things are things that can be sorted out once. Once you get the steel company working, you don't need to worry about iron and so on and so forth. Nigeria is a blessed country. These things are there. Anyway, feel free to call us, share your thoughts and contributions. Some of the papers we're taking a look at. Osage, I don't know what paper tickles your fancy.
I mean, I think I'll just chip in on this, the same story, you know, with regards to the price of capital projects. I think, first of all, I believe that there needs to be a proper auditing of the cost of capital projects in Nigeria for the longest time, for the last couple of decades. There's, you know, a strong argument to be made that a lot of these projects are overpriced. The amount of money that it costs to build a 5-kilometer road in any state in Nigeria mostly runs into, you know, billions, which is not normal. 100-kilometer roads. I mean, you heard when we had, well, now PDP member, I don't remember his name. Funjo Doherty, yes. On Monday, where he said, you know, the 100-kilometer road was going to cost, you know, 2.2 trillion, you know, naira. So I think, first of all, we need to have, you know, proper auditing of what the cost of capital project is in Nigeria. But then, you know, everyone would agree, logically and economically, that, you know, with the naira value continuing to depreciate, yes, you would need to add more money, you know, because the amount initially budgeted will no longer be enough to complete those projects.
Yeah.
Let's quickly speak with Lenin. I'll complete my thoughts in a bit. Good morning, Lenin.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. I want to talk about this diaspora voting. For me, it's a welcome development, but it is not needed at this time. I think INEC should do whatever they have to do first at home. Understand? They say charity begins at home. Let's fine-tune our electoral processes first. You saw what happened in those states, and they just concluded the situation or whatever. Plus the other last year's election. The election in Nigeria is not credible. Now we think that diaspora voting is mainly that we vote from Canada, UK, Australia, Spain, and all that. What about the people? You'll be shocked the number of votes that you see that's coming from Benin Republic, Niger, Cameroon, Ghana. You'll be shocked that you see 2 million votes from Ghana. You'll be shocked you see 3 million votes from Benin Republic. So we should find-tune. You know, we are quick to copy things once we see things that people are doing outside the country. But the basic things we are supposed to copy, we will not copy. Like basic amenities, we have light, we have good roads, we will not copy those ones. But once we just see something that is not relevant, that is good, but it's not relevant at this time, we'll just copy it. So INEC should do their main job first. Let the internal process be credible first, so that we'll know, so that when we see 100 million votes from the Niger Republic, we'll know that, okay, this 100 million votes is credible. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Lenin. Yeah, I think everyone would agree with that. But, you know, like I was saying, you know, there needs to be a proper understanding of what our capital projects, you know, really cost in Nigeria. And, you know, yes, but also to add that as much as, you know, we point out the capital project spike, cost spiking by 75%, that same issue affects everyday life in Nigeria for the average Nigerian.
Absolutely.
Cost of transportation, the cost of feeding, the cost of electricity, the cost of survival for the average Nigerian has also spiked, you know, by a large percentage as well. So it's not just the federal government that needs a supplementary budget. The average Nigerian needs a supplementary budget for their expenses every month. You know, if you used to give your wife 200,000 every month, you know, for feeding and for the household, now you need to be giving her 350, you know, and you find a supplementary budget. All homes need. All homes are going through budget deficits.
I can see some women telling the husband, "I hope you heard them there. Those are your fellow men." Did you hear what they just said now? I'm not there.
All homes, you know, need are going through have some budget deficit, you know. So we need a supplementary budget, you know, everywhere. Anyway, okay, let's speak to Henry. Good morning, Henry.
Good morning.
Henry, have you given your wife extra money?
Oh my
God. To always get extra money now. What can we do?
Supplementary budget.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much.
All right, go ahead,
so
please.
This morning, I want to talk about, I saw on one of the headlines, Arewa Consultative Forum talking about that they are planning to get an alternate to replace the president after his first term. You see, it's very laughable. You see, ACF, whoever takes them serious is wasting his or her time. Because Arewa Consultative Forum is just like an NGO. What did they do during the 8 years of Buhari? Because Buhari is from the north. They did not talk. We saw shaking in this country during 8 years of Buhari. Now, because Tinubu is from the south, they think that they can just decide for everybody in the north. Arewa Consultative Forum is just an NGO, and they just want to be noticed, unfortunately. Secondly, another headline talking about the Senate attacking the Code of Conduct Bureau chief or whatever he is. I think it's a welcome development. Because if you look at what the man has done in the past, is to withhold people. It's the same person that sacked the former CJN. So it's a welcome development. They should do more of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for your... yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I also agree with that. And, yeah, I think I pointed it out about 2 weeks ago that Danladi Umar, you know, and many others, you know, but since he's the one in focus this morning, and the case against Walter Noge, just like our guest this morning, you know, said that it's a stain on the judiciary. But for me, it's not just a stain on the judiciary, it's a stain on Nigeria. It's a stain on our institutions, it's a stain, and, you know, it's going to be almost impossible to wipe that stain of Nigeria's books completely. The damage that was done in the previous administration to the judiciary and to these institutions, all for personal interests, political interests. The case against Walter Onoge, which of course, you know, has now been kicked off, it's a huge dent to Nigeria's image that I don't know that we would ever be able to fix it. And like I said earlier, I don't think that it should have taken this long for persons like Danladi Umar to be removed by the Senate. The number of things that, you know, he has been accused of over time were just too many for us to wait till this moment to finally then remember Section 157 of the Nigerian Constitution.
All right, we do have a call. Let's go straight to the phone lines. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
All right.
Good to you. I am American, and I'm calling. Morning, good to you. I'm Babari.
Welcome, Babari. Go ahead, please.
In Ogun State. Yeah, you made mention of the iron ore, the price or whatever. But I want to really, you know, say something about this price of iron ore in Nigeria. Iron ore is supposed to have, you know, shot Nigeria super high in this manufacturer's world. You know, we chunking out heavy machinery, motor cars, and whatever, joining some of the advanced countries in producing these products. But then, what is the reason why we cannot manipulate, we cannot handle the price of iron ore in our country? If we are not, there was a time they said the Russians were in charge of this Ajaokuta iron complex, the later of the back house. So what is the real problem? Because I don't know how many years you will be there. There was one parapsychologist, Professor Okonzua. The man predicted that this iron ore that Nigeria has will be a cost to the country. So I will have to believe that man now because we have iron ore and we cannot utilize it. So I don't know. Can you please really tell me if we have the presence of iron ore that can galvanize the country to super high, that we are not making good use of it? That is my concern, my brother. Thank you.
All right, thanks for calling. Thanks for your time. And this is where we'll be wrapping up the newspaper review this morning. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back here again tomorrow to share with you, as always, the major stories making headlines across Nigeria every morning. We're going to go on a short break. When we come back, we, of course, get into more major conversations this morning on Breakfast Central. Stay with us. Welcome once again. Now, it was celebration and a joyful moment when Olubunmi Familoni, the author of The Road Does Not End, was named the winner of the 2024 Nigeria Prize for Literature by NLNG. Familoni, whose book addresses the pressing issue of child labor in society, was one of the 3 finalists in this year's competition, which comes with a cash prize of $100,000.
Well, this year's prize focused on children's literature, highlighting stories that shape young minds as well. The 2 other shortlisted works were A Father's Pride by Ndidi Chiazo Enemo and Wish Maker by Uchechukwu Peter Umezurike. Well, to share the experience of being named the winner and share with us the journey to becoming the 2024 Nigeria Prize for Literature, we have Olubunmi Familoni, and of course, he's here to join us and to talk some more about the entire ordeal. Also, we have another special guest who actually joins us here. We also have NLNG's General Manager, External Relations, and not forgetting to Sustainable Development. I'm talking about Dr. Sophia Hossel, beg your pardon. She's here with us as well, and we'll be talking deeply about that. First of all, let me say welcome, lady, and of course, gentleman.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Morning, Joe, and morning, Asarage. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us.
Great, great. Permit me to, they say ladies first, but let me jump to the gentleman first. While he came into the studio, I remember I was teasing him that he's looking more relaxed. It's like the pressure is out now, so you're calm, ready to go. Tell us, what was it like when you were declared the winner for this year's event, the entire thing? You were declared the winner. How did it feel like for you?
I think you already mentioned some of it. There was a lot of pressure before. You know, when you get on the long list, there are 11 people there. I think, are you going to make it to the short list? And you get on the short list, I think that's even more pressure, because now there are just 3 people. They say those are 3 of the best of the over 100 entries that were there. So I think most of the feeling is that pressure, that tension in the air. But after the announcement, I think apart from the joy, the euphoria, and all of that, is that ease that comes, like you said. So as I say, you clocked it, you know, just quite right. That, yeah, there's a lot of ease now. There's a lot of calm. So the first thing that you feel after all the euphoria is just the ease that, okay, yeah, we're done with all of that. Let's move on from it.
Is there a certain edge that, you know, having gray hair gives? The writing skills. I remember Professor Wole Soyinka, you know, has, you know, pretty much the same thing. Is there a little edge that it gives?
Of course.
I have one here.
Maybe might help you.
You have a long way to go.
So let's talk about the book. The Road Does Not End. Yeah. You know, what inspired it, and you know, where did it come from?
Yeah, it came from seeing the problem out on the streets of a lot of children who are not in school. And like I always say, I think it's not something that we can pretend about. Everybody's familiar with the huge problem of out-of-school children. It has kind of become an emergency. Yeah, you know, right now, there was a time the government was working on increasing admission rates so that we get more children into school. So like, you know, I saw all of that, and this is not even something to do with just numbers. It's not a statistics problem. Yeah. It's a real problem out there on the streets. So you know, moving about every day, and I saw it, and I thought, when you look at, you know, the literature that we have in Nigeria, hardly people are not talking about this. Yeah, everybody's writing about, you know, what they like, and although it's not as if the literature is not fantastic, but you know, that particular problem is underrepresented, and I feel that, okay, yeah, I mean, this is something, you know, that we can talk about.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Very interesting. Let's talk to Dr. Sophia Hossel now. What is the prize for literature for NLNG? What's it like? What's it for NLNG?
Oh, wow, great question, always. And, you know, for us in NLNG, our vision goes just beyond providing energy. It's about growth. It's about excellence. Yep. It's about inspiring a sustainable future, and it's about believing in a better Nigeria. And it is this vision that really underpins our various corporate social responsibility initiatives. And the Nigeria Prize for Literature and indeed for Science are our flagship projects. So what they do is essentially promote education, indeed elevate the need for literacy in our society, as well as just ensuring that intellectual and creative achievement in Nigeria is identified and celebrated. Now, specifically to the Nigeria Prize for Literature, it is what enables us to really promote Nigerian authors, really showcase their talent to what is a global audience, and then, of course, celebrate the excellence. So the $100,000 prize money really adds to the prestige. It helps really foster that very competitive spirit, and a healthy one at that. But it also enables us to really showcase the best of what Nigeria has to offer. And we see with that we're able to fulfill the aspirations that our founding NLG leaders had, and also to nurture what we like to see as Nigerian excellence. So it does mean a lot to us.
Yeah, the Nigerian Prizes is one of your biggest CSR projects. It has, a 20-year, legacy that has been built so far. How do you see it evolve and going, further into the future from next year?
From next year, yeah, thank you. The Nigeria Prizes, it gives us so much pride. We are very proud of it. I even like to say that it gives me personally bragging rights. And, as we now look to the future, we really want to see the prizes grow in impact, locally, nationally, and internationally. We want to actually see to it that it becomes a globally recognized award, very much the way that we have the Nobel Prize or the Booker Prize. So as we go on, we want to just see that it gets a greater audience, greater impact. And what we hope is that through the prizes for literature and for science, that we're showcasing the best of science and literature, Africa to the world. So we see it as a way of generations, future generations of thinkers, creators, and innovators really being inspired. So that's our vision going on 20 years now and 20 years into the future.
20 years is actually no joke. It's a long time. But let me come to you, Mr. Familoni. A lot of persons who have read your book, The Road Does Not End, have said that the characters depicted in the book seem to be very real. Can you share with us, did you take some time, did you walk around, did you have like a tete-a-tete, an interview with a few persons to actually bring back this mindset of really talking about the educational system, the impoverishment of persons who do not have enough money to actually go to school and so on? Can you break that down for us? What inspired that?
I think as a writer, one of the first things that you have to have is the powers of observation. So you don't even necessarily have to sit down and have conversations with people. I think those powers of observation are also interaction in their own way as well. So they don't even have to know that you're there. You're just there, almost kind of like a fly on the wall. You're observing these things and you're taking notes of them as well. So those are the things that eventually show forth in your work. So that's why when you pour them out in your work, they feel real. So it doesn't have to be a necessary interaction. You're having a conversation with them. So that was most of what I had done, apart from the fact that there was a little bit of having a chat here and there with some of these children, and just to know, because from observation you really can know that sometimes why you're not in school. Does it have to do with poverty? Does it have to do with some other kind of incapability as well? So have those conversations, but I think more importantly, also sit back and observe how they interact with the environment and how it all works as well.
I think I like the fact that this seems to have achieved two things. First of all, reward for your skill and your talent as a writer, but at the same time to highlight the actual problem, which is the number of kids that we see in traffic every day. If you drive around Lagos, they're everywhere, and it's heartbreaking. So, I mean, I would give kudos to NLNG for, of course, what we've been able to achieve, with this. But tell us a little bit more about what, happens next. Are there more stories that you're working on? Is there more things that you've been inspired by, to write about?
Well, that's a good question, because a writer will always keep writing. I think it will even be a disservice to the craft if after winning this kind of award, you stop writing. It will even almost look kind of silly, really. So well, for me, I'm always writing. There's always work in progress, as they say. So even before this book had come out, there was
already something.
There was already something. Let the cat out of the bag. So when it eventually comes out, everybody's going to see. But there's always work in progress, and even after that, I think a writer just keeps writing. Really more inspiration as well.
Interesting. I have a few questions for you, though. That's off the top of my head in terms of just coming into my mind right now. We do see where books are being transitioned into playwrights, stage plays, movies. I'm sure you'll be looking forward to that, right? Yes
adaptations
or no? Adaptations, yes.
Film adaptations.
Yes or no?
Yeah, having a few conversations about it.
Already, I see.
People see the book and they believe it's cinematic, so it should be represented on screen, whether as animation or whether just maybe even as a short film, as well. So there's definitely those prospects.
Nice. I'm sure you have a manager as well for that. I'm just asking. Let me come back to Dr. Hosford. Dr. Hosford, let's talk about the level of participation for the Nigerian Prize for Literature for 2024. And I just need to snip this in very quickly. Can a past winner still come back?
Thank you. Great question. In terms of the participation, it really has been impressive. The quality of work that we continue to see has been, just phenomenal. The interest in the social media space, it's always rife with activity, comment, conversation. Anytime we get to the stage gates, the various stage gates of the prize. So we're pleased about that. And, the participation, more importantly, has really raised the game in terms of writing, not just that, editing, proofreading, and even publishing. And then we find that we do have the usual governance around this who can, come in to apply again. But I think the more important question is the participation is up there. It continues to increase. And we really see a great future for this prize. But more importantly, the impact it makes in Nigeria and internationally.
Yeah, I totally appreciate. I think everyone should also appreciate the fact that LNNG is also rewarding skills that to a large extent maybe a lot of people don't even talk about. So it's interesting and it's commendable to LNNG. Thank you very much to you both for stopping by, and congratulations once again.
Thank you very much.
Whenever I get more of these gray hairs, I'll see what I can write. See how inspirational it will be.
All right.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, so that does it for our conversation concerning the Nigeria Prize for Literature in 2024. I'm sure you know what the level of participation is, definitely. And if you're a writer, I'm sure you're inspired. You do know that there is a platform for you. And most importantly, like they say, the sky is beyond your limits. So make sure you follow through. NLNG is doing something fantastic. Make sure you follow through. And you can also be here, seated with us and talking about being the winner for next year. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at what made the big stories later on. In the meantime, I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Sophia Hosford, for joining us. And also thank you so much, Olubunmi, for as well joining us here.